Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Art of Creation Homestead. My name is Jason. We're in the kitchen this morning, and Angela Kay has been thinking of some brilliant recipes lately, and this is one of them that I believe is one of the best. And I'm really excited about trying it for breakfast this morning with a nice hot cup of coffee. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her take care of teaching you how to make these amazing chocolate hazelnut sweet rolls.
Now I'm going to start by telling you I am going to use a KitchenAid, but you can also do this by hand. But I'm taking a little help this morning. So I have 3 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm using all-purpose instead of bread flour because I want the dough to be a little more tender than it would make with bread flour. And in the middle here I have 3 tablespoons of sugar. Over here to the side, and yes, the placement is important, I have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And on this side I have 2 1/2 teaspoons of instant yeast. I use SAF. Now, everybody loves sugar, but salt and yeast can't stand the side of each other. So you need to mask them. Throw them in a little flour. It coats them and masks them.
This is because the salt will inhibit the yeast, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will go into that a little deeper after I get this mixed in. Next we're adding, this is 1/2 cup of whole milk with 1/2 cup of water and 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I have heated this to between 110 and 115 because I keep my yeast in the freezer and it's frozen. It takes a little more to wake it up, so I err on the side of 115 with mine. Now I'm going to pour all that in. And I'm going to start stirring it in just to moisten everything and to cool things down a little bit before I add the next thing. Now I'm going to add 1 whole large egg. You want to kind of mix things in a little first, that way you're not adding it to that hot, well, semi-hot liquid so that it doesn't curdle your egg.
Right.
The reason I'm adding an egg is to make this kind of similar to a brioche. You want a buttery, eggy dough for this. And that egg will add a lot of richness. You don't have to add the egg. You can leave it out if you're allergic or don't like eggs or don't have eggs. You can leave that out. But it's going to add a lot of richness. Now, if you are using a KitchenAid, you want to put it on your KitchenAid at this time with your dough hook. But the reason I wanted to go into the fact about the yeast and salt. If you are using SAF, like I do, SAF really doesn't care so much about the yeast. It really doesn't. The yeast doesn't care about salt. You can dump it all in together and it's fine. But the reason I go into that step is because the older your yeast is, the more likely it is to react between the two. And because it's going to react, I'm telling you to take that precaution. Because the yeast you buy in the store, you don't know how old it is. It could be very old. And it's been on the shelf for a while. So don't risk it and just dump it all in together. Now, you want to start this out on low speed. And you want to let it go until it cleans the bowl. Until there's no more flour left on the bowl. And I'll show you what it looks like when we're there. Okay, as you can see, it has cleaned the bowl in just a matter of minutes. And while it is wanting to stick to the bowl a little bit, which usually is an indicator, oh, I need to add a little bit more flour because you have 1/4 cup of just in case flour over there. But look, it's not sticking to my hands at all. So therefore, I'm not going to add the extra flour. Now, if it at any point starts to stick to my fingers, then I will go ahead and add a tablespoon of flour. But right now, because it's not sticking to my fingers, I'm not going to do that. Because you don't want your dough to get tough and dry. Because you've added the egg, you've added the butter and stuff like that to make it not a dry dough. So now, either by hand or with the mixer, you want to knead this. In a KitchenAid, you will want to knead it for about 3 to 5 minutes until it is nice and smooth By hand, you will want to knead it for 5 to 7 minutes because you can't knead it as fast or as hard as you can in a KitchenAid. But in the KitchenAid, you will knead it on about medium speed. I'm done kneading the dough, and in the KitchenAid, it took about 4 minutes. And see, it's nice and smooth, and when you push on it, it bounces back. See, it's bouncing back. And you want to give it a couple of turns with your hands. I have floured the surface just a little bit because the dough is a little bit tacky, but not sticking to your hands. So don't go crazy with the flour like I'm wiping this away. It's took a little bit of it. I'm wiping the rest away. Now, as you can see, it's a very smooth dough. It's extremely smooth. Now, if you just took a little bit of flour, when you put it down, you want to knead it until you get that little bit of flour kneaded in so that it will come back together as a ball. Instead of, see, like that is opening up. You want to knead it together until that wants to come back together. And I can feel it getting a little tackier under my hands.
I can see it, yeah.
So, and see, it's coming together. It's wanting to stick back together now. Because you don't want to leave it floury and not cohesive as a ball. Because then it will cause you trouble rolling it out later. And see, now you can pull it all together at that seam. Pinch it all together like this into a ball. Pat it down, and see, now you've got a beautiful ball of dough. And now we're going to put this back in our bowl, cover it with a towel, and let it rest for 10 minutes because you have worked that gluten really hard. Let it relax for about 10 minutes before you start rolling it out. It'll be much easier on you to roll it out. Now we've let it rest for the 10 minutes. And as you can see, it has started to rise just a tiny bit, but not much. This is a very, very soft dough. You can see how easy it's going to be to work. I might not need the rolling pin because it is so soft.
It's doing pretty good, you're right.
It is so soft and so beautiful that literally I may be able to just pat it out with my hands, which is honestly my preference. If I can do it with my hands, I would much rather do it with my hands. I feel like I can feel the thinness or thickness of it better if I can pat it with my hands. Because with a rolling pin, I don't feel like I can control how thick or thin it is in certain spots. I feel like I get a much more even dough if I can pat it with my hands. Now I've kept flour over to the side in case it starts to stick. And like I said, this dough's a little tacky because of the egg and all the butter. It is a little tacky, but it's not sticky. There's a difference between tacky and sticky. Sticky is when it's sticking all over your fingers. Tacky is when it's sticking to surfaces just a tiny bit, but not enough to tear it, but it's not sticking to your hands at all. Now you want to pat it out to a rectangle about like this. How big would you say that is, Jason? I would say it's probably about,
I'll get about 14 by 14 this way and 12 this way. Or about maybe a little more.
Yeah, probably.
Only 14 by 13 almost. It's pretty close.
It's not
close.
A square.
No.
It's not a square, but roughly about that size.
Maybe 15 this way.
And you want it about that thick, which is about a half an inch, probably. A fourth to a half an inch, somewhere between there. If you are a measuring person, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. It's fine if it's 50. If it's looks good from 50 yards on a galloping horse. But if you are the type that it has to be precise with, get out a measuring device and measure it. Now we are going to use some chocolate hazelnut spread. You can use any brand you like. If you use, I am using Whole Foods brand. Yep. It is very spreadable on its own. See, I'm just stirring it up and it's very spreadable on its own. Now, Nutella isn't as spreadable, so you may want to put that in the microwave for about 15 to 20 seconds to loosen it up a little.
This one's good.
But this one, see, it's spreading really good.
Yep.
And you want to be gentle with the spreading because you don't want to tear up your dough, make your knife go through the dough and tear it up. So you want to be very gentle with the spreading. It's probably, this is a 12.3 ounce jar. It's probably going to take about, well, really it depends on how much you want to put in it, but
you can take the whole thing if you want.
I wouldn't go overboard with it because it could get really sweet really quick.
Yeah.
Even though the Whole Foods brand is not as sweet as Nutella. I will tell you that if you're looking for a less sweet one. This one is not as sweet as Nutella. Nutella, if you go overboard with it, it can taste like cake icing. This doesn't. This is a little more rich, chocolatey, and not as cloyingly sweet. Now, this will probably take about 3/4 of the jar, and this will make 12 rolls. So you're going to get a lot of rolls out of this. So that, I would say, once they're baked, I would say they will freeze well. Leftovers will probably freeze well. I don't know, I've never tried that. So if you try it, you'll have to let me know if it works. Or like with me and Jason, this is going to be multiple morning breakfast. Now we've got our chocolate hazelnut spread out in a nice even layer. And you can see I've left a bigger border up here because that's your closing edge. I've left a little bit of a border on the sides so if it starts ooching to the sides, it won't overflow the sides. I've left a tiny bit of a border here where you're starting to roll. That way it'll help with not ooching. Now I'm going to start pushing it up from the long side and start rolling it. And I'm working across this way and back across like a typewriter. Now, if you don't know what a typewriter is, look it up. Because some of you may not know what a typewriter is.
Our audience does.
Now, you want to keep rolling. Just working across, making them as tight as you can without causing them to ooch everywhere. Which this isn't going to ooch a whole lot. It's thick enough that it's not going to ooch a whole lot. Yes, I say ooch and ooching. Those are my words. Now, you want to take this end. And you don't want to keep rolling at that point because you're going to keep pushing your chocolate hazelnut spread out to the end. So you want to take this end, kind of stretch it a little bit, fold it over. Because you don't want to push that out and end up ruining your seal. Then you want to pinch that together. Yes, I've got chocolate hazelnut spread on my fingers. It happens when you kind of drag your fingers through it just a little bit. Mess is clean. That's what Jason always tells me. Now you want to push in your ends. Pinch, pinch, pinch. It doesn't matter if it's sealed perfect, but you do want it sealed the best you can. Now you want to take it, flip it so that seam is on the bottom. And see, that dough is durable enough that it can take that.
Yes, it's quite impressive. Watch it kind of flip over.
That dough is durable enough that it can take it because the egg made it very stable. Now we are going to start cutting it. We have a 13x9 pan over here that I have greased with cooking spray. I'm using coconut oil spray. That's the reason it looks a little weird because coconut oil spray will start to re-solidify. Now we're going to cut this into 12. And I am using a serrated bread knife to do this. And you want to go back and forth in a gentle sawing motion. You don't want to push straight down because if you push straight down, you're going to mash them. Now, between each cut, you want to wipe all of that off or your rolls are going to get really messy really quick. So I'm going to cut that in half, cut each of these in half, and then cut each of those in a third. And I'll show you what it looks like when I get them in the pan. I got these all in the pan. As you can see, that they're a little muddy right now, but as they rise, that will change, and you'll start to see that perfect swirl as they rise. Now, as you can see, I've left space between them because you want them to rise to fill that in. So you want to cover these with either a towel or with plastic wrap. Put them in a draft-free warm place until they have almost or completely doubled in size. These beauties have doubled in size. It took about 35 to 40 minutes. Now you want to make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees and you will bake them for between 20 and 25 minutes. These beauties are out of the oven and they smell absolutely divine.
They're so awesome.
And they look so good. Now when you take them out of the oven, you want to make sure that you take just a butter knife and go between each roll and separate them out to make sure that they're going to come apart clean. I'm sure that they will pull apart nicely on their own, but I want to make sure they come out clean. And you want to let them cool because that chocolate hazelnut spread is going to burn your pie hole because it's going to keep its heat for a while. So be sure and let these cool before you dig in.
Look at this beautiful, beautiful roll Angela K made. It looks great on the bottom. It looks great on the top. Wonderful. I bet it even tastes good. What do you think? Surprise. It's so good. Perfect. Beautiful balance of the hazelnut and chocolate hazelnut spread and a roll. Perfect. What a perfect breakfast pastry. And again, I got some hot coffee. I'm ready to eat it. So tell you what, you want to have a nice little sweet breakfast pastry with a good hot cup of coffee, try these out. They're going to be wonderful. So thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. My name is Jason. That's Smart. Her name is Angela K. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you and goodbye.